Welcome to Travel Around the Block. Join Joel, Mike, and their guests as they explore how Web3 and AI are reshaping the way we journey, invest, and connect across the globe. This episode is sponsored by Lumo. Powered by AI, Lumo makes it possible for travelers and travel managers to predict, avoid, and manage flight disruptions.
Welcome and welcome back to Travel Around the Block, where we dive deep with trailblazers shaping the future of travel and technology. We're your hosts, Joel and Mike, and this week our guest is Jeff Kuk, the co-founder and CEO of Tripian. Tripian is on a mission to empower travel companies to effortlessly expand their product range with highly personalized itineraries, bookable in-destination experiences, and ancillary services. For more than 20 years, Jeff has leveraged his personal passion for travel with his professional experience leading businesses through digital transformation across a wide range of domains such as SaaS, IoT, cloud, and mobile, for an equally wide range of verticals that include telco, loyalty, retail, travel and tourism, fintech, B2B, and D2C. Wow. Welcome, Jeff. Fantastic to have you with us today. We're so happy that you're in our little coffee shop. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. It's been looking forward to this.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad you joined us. Can I ask you, Jeff, that's quite a background and one of the broadest that we've come across. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your journey into the travel industry. With a background that broad, you could have ended up in any coffee shop in the world or any industry in the world. How did it come to be that you ended up in travel?
That's an interesting story, how I ended up in digital tech to begin with. The short part of the story is I started out my academic career and professional career as an aerospace engineer. So even before those digital worlds, I worked in aerospace engineering, and somewhere along the way, I just really figured out I love problem solving. I got introduced to some really cool companies that were doing digital transformation back in the 90s and early 2000s, where I really discovered that data was the core of everything and really helped businesses transform. So I jumped on that, and that kind of took me through that digital wave. Then with the travel thing, I've always been an explorer. I've always, had what they call the traveler's gene, and something I've always enjoyed doing. So when I had the opportunity that, I got introduced to the founder at the time of Tripian, and just an opportunity to get into travel tech, it just really resonated. And it was an area where I could take my passion for data, problem solving, enterprise business, and really try to make a difference. And it's been an amazing run.
Very cool. And how did your wife feel about you getting deeper into the travel industry? Was she supportive?
Yeah, it's been amazing. So over the time, so even though I've done some big enterprise type businesses, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've had various startups over the time. So she's been really used to it and used to the journey and used to the side hustles and used to the projects. I've always had something on the go. Getting into travel was something that she saw that I really jumped into. And she knew something was up when I started leaning in 120%. And this became my sole focus. And then that's when she knew that we were onto something and it was going to be a bit of a ride. And as any, partner of a startup founder knows, it's not an easy ride, but I've had an amazing support.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm going to take this opportunity to give kind of a special shout out to all the unsung stakeholders. Sometimes they're not in the headlines, but we all know that they're probably about as important to the story as anyone on earth. And so shout out to all those hidden stakeholders. How did you first get interested in AI, Jeff? What led you to that area?
Well, the interesting thing on AI was, as I mentioned, it's just really about data. And, I was one of those people back, years ago saying we were doing AI before AI was a thing. An interesting little footnote is I first registered a trademark back in 2019 called for nested artificial intelligence. And that was when I was dabbling back then and using the term, and I let it lapse, and then we reapplied. And in fact, just earlier this week, I got it from the USPTO that it's registered, so I can use the circle R on nested artificial intelligence. So maybe that does make me a bit of a pioneer, a bit of an early adopter. But again, AI to me is just a way of using tools to leverage data in a further way. So to me, it's just a natural progression.
Love it. By the way, congrats on that award. That's extremely lovely to get that official stamp of approval and kind of ownership. So kudos to you for that. I've heard you actually speak about nested AI briefly in the past. We had a chat some months ago where you were sharing a little bit about that. And it's one of those conversations that I'm still processing, quite honestly. And so I wonder, so that we can inflict that same long gestation period on our audience. Maybe can you share a little bit about how you see nested AI? What do you mean by that? And how might the audience come to get their minds around that concept?
Yeah, no, it's thank you for asking, because really nested AI to me was just all about the logical progression of using an AI tool that took data in and created an output. Then that output of that AI tool became an input to another AI engine and such. And so I had this hierarchical tree of different AI tools feeding into different outcomes. But there's not and my thought of it is that there's not a single AI tool that you use, but rather a series of nested tools. And that's really coming into play now with our enterprise customers. For example, we're dealing with a large international DMC now who has a couple of their own AI tools. And they're, understanding with Tripian's nested artificial intelligence that we can take the output that they're using with one of their agent AI tools as an input to a larger process. So it's really a way of leveraging, multiple tools. And when we think of enterprise adoptions, it's not just thinking of AI as a singularity. It's really how does it become part of a larger integrated ecosystem? And that was the concept we created behind nested artificial intelligence.
I have to say,
Wow, super
I really
interesting.
it is. I really resonate with that term. And I think for me, it kind of, there's something about it that's quite lovely because sometimes when we look at these very high tech concepts, there's a tendency to be so enthused about this particular tool or this particular technology. And I feel like the word nested has, if I may, has a lot of wisdom within it. It's almost a term that almost connotes how we might look at nature. And I guess I just feel like you are onto something with that insight. And I would encourage you to keep pondering that because nested AI is a very, very intuitively beautiful concept. So I really love that. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate that.
I thought it was really interesting the way you, first of all, came up with the term nested AI and then the way you describe it. Because as you were kind of describing it in my mind, it's almost as if you have, let's say, the concept of a person that specializes in something, and then they are really good at doing that. But then the goal really isn't that. And then you have another person that's a specialist in that area as well. So you kind of have like this one person that does it, that completes a goal or something like that, and then passes that information down to another person to ultimately get to an end goal. That's how my brain kind of processed that. Is that somewhat
Oh, definitely.
there, or am I off?
No, you're right on the right path, and I'm even going to help you extend it even one step further. We take it in how do we collaborate with other AI travel companies and other AI travel techs, where it's really also my approach in doing that is I'm a firm believer in like collaboration, open sharing, and developing and creating greater value. So by having a concept of nested AI, I can look to and work with other partners, other companies who may have something, because in a large travel ecosystem, there's room for many different services. So if I can make my platform and make Tripian the ability to play nice with others, then we'll foster a better overall value and solution. So it really comes from a place of, as you said, Joel, it's a place of warmth, of belief, and collaboration. And to your point, Mike, of extending an ecosystem and building those layers, 100%.
Yeah. So now I'm seeing like you could either have internal nested AIs within Tripian, but also the ability to be able to work with, your customer AIs, external AIs, if you will, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
awesome. Well, hey, let's actually take a step back. We got into more of the technology side of things, but let's take a step and like get that, Tripian elevator pitch almost, if you will. Like, what is Tripian, and also what is the genesis of it? Like, how did Tripian come about? And I think if I recall correctly, Jeff, Tripian's been around for a few years, right?
yeah. So yeah, I'll try to tell the short story to get to the elevator pitch, but Tripian started in 2016 by a fellow who ran a tour operator and travel company. And Tripian was created as a D2C app as a way of having preset personalized itineraries that really helped people find local off the beaten path spots. So back in 2016, they were going around and interviewing a chef in Paris and having that chef's perfect day in Paris, or an artist, and getting those real boutique sort of tours and days. When I got introduced to the company in late 2017, we identified that it's not a scalable solution. You can't just go around and have these preset tours be that unique. So we introduced the concept of how do we get data? So the first genesis of Tripian at that point was getting rich data, getting very detailed POI data, event data, location data, and using that to write some algorithms to generate, instead of having those preset tours, to have very more personalized, where a person could enter their parameters and they would get their own unique tour preference based on how busy things are, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the early kind of iteration in 2018, 2019. And where we've evolved to today, as Joel mentioned in the introduction, is, we're still that data service, we're still that recommendation service, but as a B2B is we do that with the interest of driving transactions. Because, travel is a wonderful, warm business, but at the end of the day, it's a business. And so what we do is we take the Tripian technology, our recommendations, our deep POI data, and connect it and leverage in with our customers' needs, whether it's a travel credit card who has cashback merchants, whether it's an OTA that has additional tours they want to recommend, or whether it's a DMC that has to have their agents, make better recommendations to make more unique tours. The Tripian engine can combine our different client data, combine it with our own recommendation algorithms, and drive those richer experiences.
I'm curious, Jeff, how it feels for you when you're watching an ad at night and Airbnb has a vision of layering in experiences and services to people on the go. Any comment on that?
Oh, no, I think it's amazing. The whole thing is we've seen that journey for years. We, as humans, we remain aspirational, and we all have always wanted to do all of these things. Being a technology innovator, a lot of it, we could say we were ahead of the market curve, and it's been a long grind. So when the big players and the big enterprise players like Airbnb come out and validate the concept that there is a market for personalized interest, I welcome it, because it's such a huge industry with so many different verticals. I'm not afraid of any sort of competition. I wouldn't, I'd take them as market validation. So I think it's amazing because it reaffirms we're in the right space.
Totally agree.
So what I wanted to kind of dig into is the use case and the value proposition from, let's say, a travel supplier's perspective. And I'm just going to throw a scenario out there for you, Jeff, to see if I'm aligned into what Tripian's capabilities are, right? So obviously you have a rich set of POI or point of interest data. You have an algorithm that is able to match those POI, experiences to a particular travel profile, let's say, right? So hypothetically, let's say I'm a frequent customer of a particular hotel brand or a particular airline or a particular OTA, right? They have a certain set of my profile data that you could probably tap into to enrich that personalization. But essentially, that gives you an idea. Like Mike is a foodie. He likes to have adventures when he travels. He likes winter sports, or he likes hiking and outdoor nature and so forth. Let's say you get that. So essentially, potentially, if I'm in a particular hotel brand's mobile app or an airline's mobile app and so forth, then you potentially can know, like, if I'm going to be traveling and staying in, Montreal, Canada for this period of time, then your system is able to recommend things to do, experiences to have directly into that particular customer's mobile app. Am I somewhat understanding that could potentially be the use case?
That's exactly the type of use cases. And it even gets more interesting, where if we know that when you were in Chicago, you did an art gallery tour that you quite enjoyed, and then you do go to Montreal, we'll be going through with the different OTA suppliers and matching and recommending you a similar tour that we know you like to help drive that conversion. Because you're more likely, if we know the type of things you're purchasing and interested in, is making sure you're getting those same sort of experiences without having to work too hard to uncover it yourself. So it's helping you have that easy discovery without it being an obvious recommendation. And that's what we really strive for, is having that feeling like you still found it, but it feels familiar, but it's different enough that you're still thrilled by it.
How do you do that? How do you enrich a customer's profile? So you said, like, okay, I know Mike went to an art museum. How do you know that?
Well, a lot of it comes from if I would say we started years ago with traditional, machine learning is, through your activities, through your clicks, through your likes, how you're engaging with the platform, knowing that if you're giving feedback, then we combine that, especially in the B2B, as you mentioned, if we work with a brand and they have your preferences, then that gives us a good leg up. Where if they have some purchase history, like we're working with a credit card company out in Asia who has quite a bit of that transactional data and that mind, so they know their spending preferences and patterns of the card holders, so they're able to share with us some of that profile information that then helps us recommend POIs, locations, and shopping that they know that person is primarily interested in through their purchase histories.
I'd love to,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, is there an optimal inference distance? Like I've sometimes heard Jerry Seinfeld speak about when he's landing a joke, there's the perfect amount of distance from this cliff to this. And if it's too close, it's a bit of a groaner. And if it's too far, the audience falls in. So the just right amount is like there was some danger, but you did stick the landing. When we're recommending experiences, is there such a thing as too far out, or is there such a thing as too close in? Like, is there an optimal distance in your experience?
And what we find, and we caution our clients on making something feel too recommended, too obvious, of having it like feel like a branded approach where, people are smart and they'll, as they use the tool, if they start getting the same types of recommendations from the same type of merchant, it'll start to feel staged then to that point. So we're always cautioning them because our platform's highly configurable. We can support a number of different business rules to suit their needs and have preferential recommendations and weight things a little differently. But we caution them to that point, Joel, of to let it be organic still and layer in different ways of featuring preferred POIs and preferred partners and merchants, because we want that feeling of authenticity still. And I'm very cognizant of that when I travel myself. It's, even though I'll use my own platform when I go in destination, I still do like ad hoc discovery and I still will turn left instead of right. And, I believe good solutions will allow that combination of a free form yet recommended and guided. And sometimes it's nice when you have that close recommendation to get you back on track. So if you wander off the beaten path a bit, you can re-anchor going, oh, here's where I was told to go. That's safe. I know it. Okay, let's reset. So it's there's so much to it. I don't think there's an exact science, and I think that's why we're still having so much fun with it, is because it's changing all the time, and there's, we're learning all the time as well.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And I really agree. It's very much an art and a science. And I think sometimes, especially among tech innovators, we sometimes lean into the science and sometimes forget about the art, but ultimately everything being recommended by a tool is being received by a human mind. And I guess I would just encourage anyone listening, if you're deep into the tech, don't forget the art, because the art is an important dimension of how it'll land in the ears and heart of the person who actually is receiving it. So thank you, Jeff. Hey, you guys recently entered a partnership with Visa, and I was curious how that came about, and how that's going. And maybe for the other entrepreneurs who might be listening, I assume that Visa partnership maybe took a few minutes to spin up and it was just an overnight success. Can you comment?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we've chatted about this one before, and it's I feel that there's a LinkedIn post or a blog post coming, and the reality
Look
was,
forward to that.
yeah, we, again, these entrepreneurial journey and the early stage companies, everything happens so fast. You just get sudden attraction. We first spoke to Visa in 2019. We had our first contract red line across with them in February of 2020. But then we all know what happened in March of 2020. Things shut down. Visa re-engaged 2 years later in 2022. We continued the discussions with their Latin America division to implement a trip planning benefit and part of their travel portal. Then literally this year in 2025, so 5 years after the fact, is we actually signed the contract with Visa to release a trip planner in their travel benefits portal. And was recently released within the last couple months. So even from the time of
Congrats.
signing the contract, it still takes months. And I think that's the one thing where, coming from those enterprise company backgrounds that I have, is I do, and I've always understood that enterprise deals take time. and you need to be able to survive through that time. And one of the things also we're now on the other side of it is some of the traction we are getting with larger companies is they realize we have been around for years. We do have that sticking power where we're not just a startup who's fleeting and might be gone tomorrow. Is we have, you know, the traction and the miles under our feet. And I think it really helps us. And that would be, you know, the one lesson I've always learned through the entrepreneurial journey is that conviction, and you hit that point of when you decide to really push through and really cross that chasm. And I think, Mike, you published an article some time ago, if I recall, about the 95% of, you know, certain startups surviving. And it's not always, you know, because of the market. Sometimes it's just persistence. It's crossing the gap. It just takes a lot more
Yeah.
than right time, right
And
place.
sometimes I think it's also timing as
Yeah.
well. You know, you can have an awesome product, solve a big problem, but maybe the timing just isn't the most optimal. Which I also want to kind of circle back with what you just said, Jeff, because I think two congratulations, first of all, obviously with the partnership with Visa, that grit for many years and the fruition that came out of that really has got to be satisfying. And the
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
second is not a lot of travel startups survives COVID, right? Those were brutal years for travel, and then to be able to have that, you know, sticking power and having that grit and having that like vision and a certain level of runway to be able to like survive that period and then come out with a major partnership with Visa that you built that relationship with for many years. I think that's a tremendous story behind that. So one thing I kind of wanted to dig in on a little bit is how did you survive? How did Tripian survive the COVID period? And then also with where Tripian is at right now, where are you taking it? What are we going to be able to expect to see? Is there anything else in the pipes that you guys are working on?
For sure. The first part is how did we survive COVID? It really comes down to, I'd say, three things. Is one, we were very fortunate to have a client at the time who believed in the recovery of travel and was investing in a product that we built. It was a partnership we had with Global Ports Holding, the world's largest independent cruise port operator. And they were building a platform that was basically built on top of Tripian. So we had a contract through about a year and a half of COVID with this client that kept some cash flow coming in. And as the CEO was really, you know, at the time, very, you know, very kind of motivating, because he would tell us and tell anybody in the industry that travel was going to return. It was going to come back large. So it was, you know, motivating. The second of, you know, in addition to being bootstrapped, you know, we did able to find out, you know, the one thing, having a bit of experience under my belt, I was able to do some consulting work during COVID that helped kind of keep the company bootstrapped. So that's where you get into survival mode and do what it takes to keep things going. And we were also very fortunate at the time, and who we still do. We have, you know, a principal angel investor who's been with us now for 5 years and is part of the team. And that really helped too. So it was that balance of those three things. You know, I think that's kind of a really important thing for a company to survive through any phase, not just COVID, but it really was a model of you know, doing what it takes to keep things going.
Jeff, that resonates on so many levels that it almost is like 8 podcasts unto itself to go there. But if I guess I just want to take the opportunity, since we've kind of gone so far into the topic of getting through that period, I bet everyone listening who's in the travel industry will never forget kind of what that was like and who they leaned on and how that worked. And so maybe I could just take this opportunity rather selfishly to just acknowledge all the people all over the world that collectively helped us all kind of get through that. And anyway, it's painful, but it's also rather beautiful, because I think it brought to the fore some of the best that people have. And for those of us who lived through it, I think we'll probably never forget it. So anyway, thank you for bringing back some painful but also beautiful memories. Appreciate it.
Thanks. It's
Jeff, if I
something to
could
talk about. Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah, you bet. I know you believe strongly in helping, and it's even evident in your comments here, but I know you believe in helping other entrepreneurs through their own journeys. And I think part of that is kind of a willingness to share the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, all of it, the whole experience of it. And I was wondering, what do you find most rewarding about helping other entrepreneurs? I think, if I may, some entrepreneurs love captaining their own ship, but don't necessarily have that passion for helping other ship captains, and then some obviously do. But what difference does that make for you, and kind of what is it about that that speaks to you so much?
It's a really interesting question because I've never so much thought of myself as that being something I do, like as a specific
Mm.
call it. For me, it's always been something I've done. I was the guy in high school and university who organized the intramurals. I would be the friend who would organize the weekend trips. When I with my kids growing up, I was the dad who coached the hockey teams and the baseball teams and had that time to participate and give to the community and to help make things happen. And it's that sort of coaching, nurturing, and also, being contributing back into these systems because that's the only way they advance and survive. And I really think that I've carried that over into the startup world because, everybody's struggling. Everybody needs some advice. Somebody sometimes just needs a lift up. And, we've worked with some entrepreneurs. I've done some, I guess, official mentoring and coaching. But to me, it's not that it's selfish, it's just something in my nature and just something that I've always enjoyed doing. And like I said, it comes from, as I think about it and thought about it, it's a weird thing because I'm a truly competitive person when it comes to sport and achievements and my own challenging myself. But when it comes to, collaborating, as I mentioned earlier, with others and helping somebody else, to me, I get no better feeling than if I've been able to help, another founder or even one of my team members or somebody I collaborate with, giving them a bit of boost or a bit of information that they've taken and gotten better or generated value with, then I feel I've got a piece of that value as well. And it's just my character. And I think as years have gone by, it's just really resonated. And so now maybe as it kind of getting a little bit more on the mature side of the startup game in the early stage, I think it's even more important for, people like myself to be a bit of that role model and lead by example.
It's really, really amazing. And maybe it's related or maybe it's its own topic, but I think I once read that you said the thing you're arguably proudest of in your career is the network that you've developed. And I wonder, there are probably a lot of folks of varying stages of their career, various ages, various everything, personalities, styles. For those who might not find it as natural as you do to develop a network, what advice might you have for them, and how might they think about building their network as they look at the decades of their life ahead?
Wow. So this is going to be a little self-effacing. I don't mean to sound. I didn't realize I was building such a strong network till after the fact. A lot of the time, I didn't realize it's not something I tried to do. I tried to be, a good worker and an honest contributor. And you have good times, bad times. You've had times when you perform well. Like anybody, I've had times where I've performed really poorly and things didn't work out. But it's getting through those times. And again, it's not sometimes not till later that you realize the power of what you were doing that builds the network. And I think, that would be my advice is don't try to build a network, just let it authentically come and do it because you want to do it and be good and contribute because you want to. And just one of the, best examples that I had that resonate with me of how I built a powerful network without even thinking about it is during university, I worked on Via Rail up here in Canada. I worked on the passenger trains with summers between university. It was a hard job and I didn't really think much of it. I was proud of my work. 15 years later, when I got married and we were on our honeymoon going across Canada on Via Rail, because I really enjoyed the rail, there were people working on the railway who remembered me. And it was a job that I worked hard at and met some good people. And it wasn't until years later when I was on Via in my honeymoon that a lot of the workers on the train remembered me and, extended some courtesies and gifts and privileges that it really dawned on me that I had a networking effect and, did something that these people remembered me by. And, I've remembered that and stuck with that and just built the network, not with, objectives in mind, but more just wanting to, build a network with good people and, it comes back.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, Jeff. I remember, if I
Yeah.
may overshare, I remember asking a professor years and years ago, obviously, a professor of mine who was rather dear to me. I said, at this college, we're constantly exhorted to make a contribution, and it was kind of almost an exhortation to do good. And I said, as I look around the world, it already looks in many ways perfect to me already. And he said, just participate, just participate. And anyway, I love your answer, because I feel like a lot of people get a book on how to network 101 and how to self-promote and how to exactly wear their name tag. And it's almost like, if I may, from my own experience, it's a little bit more in the spirit of Eminem: lose yourself, forget about all that stuff. It takes care of itself. And anyway, I really applaud the spirit of your answer. So really like it.
Cool.
Shifting gears. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thing. It's not always easy to talk about. And when, you bring up a question like that, it's meaningful. Yeah. It's something that people
Yeah,
should think about.
for sure. If I could shift gears from the deeply humanistic to more of just a more futuristic question. We have you as our futurist in chief here in our coffee shop, and I wonder if we could impinge on you to let us glimpse the future through your eyes and sort of see, on any dimension you care to touch on, what does the future look like on whatever time horizon you pick?
So my current favorite theme on that is that legacy companies who are still using facsimiles and phone calls in about 5 to 8 years will be current to today's standard. I think that's the thing people forget a lot about travel. It's everybody focuses on the romantic edge case of the innovative and the new shiny thing. But it's an industry that has a lot of traditional processes, a lot of manual processes, moving pieces. And, my exciting journey in prediction is that those companies will survive because they've got big inertia and they've got big employee bases and they do good work. And part of my journey is to help them do that digital transformation so they stay current and they stay, viable in 10, 15, 20 years because they have adopted technology, not when it was first released, but when it was right for their business.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this, because I think you have a unique lens, personally, where you've been, and also with Tripian, is the travel industry, the concept of, AI in travel and where that is going to be. Because obviously in the last few years, the introduction of OpenAI's ChatGPT into travel, and then the recent announcement with what OpenAI is doing with like Expedience. So from a traveler's journey, right? So we know like the dreaming and inspiration phase, the planning, the booking phase, the pre and post days, and so forth, right? And right now we see a lot of activity of using AI in the inspiration and planning phase. I think soon we're going to see the transactions starting to happen with the booking and everything like that as well. So that's current state. Where do you think, for an audience that's just a traveler but not exactly in the travel industry space, where do you think the travel is going to be within the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years, leveraging generative AI?
Yeah, so I can go two sides on that. So on the one side, I could say I'm a tech visionary and innovator, and I could say that there will be additional assistance, additional guides, whether it's meta glasses or whether through your earbud, you'll just have a lot more on-demand content and interest, that you'll have access to the information that much quicker, faster, how you want it. Then I go to the other side and say, just because it's there, do you really want it? And again, a discussion I have with people is back in 2004, 2005 is when a real big wave of digital tech came available in museums, where it was on-demand guides, both audio, visual, digital recordings. You could skip to any place and get that information on demand. And it was supposed to put museum guides out of work. Well, 20 years later, still hundreds of museum guides. People still like that personal touch. So I think there's always going to be room in travel for that leading edge innovation of the adopters, the people who want it, and they'll have it and it'll make their life richer. But travel, again, the AI will help people with the bookings. They'll help them do more, see more, find more places, find some off the beaten path. One thing I really look forward to is having AI and technologies help people find emerging nations and emerging countries where tourism can help benefit these countries grow and sustain and distribute some of the world travel dollars. So I really think technology has a place in fostering growth and economic development, while also accommodating the travelers who want the tools, while also accommodating and travelers not use it because they want the humanity.
I was going to say, Jeff, we're in the realm of high balance with you. And I think my dream for technology would be, yes, of course, it's there with just the right thing at just the right time, but it also knows when to, shall we say, leave a little space, leave a little silence, and maybe let somebody actually see that piece of art in front of them without constantly opining into the ear in real time. And so maybe I'll say to our audience, please do listen to the podcast. We love you, but also make sure you sometimes when you're taking your walk, occasionally just unplug and enjoy your feet under your body. So Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. I'm sure folks can find you readily on LinkedIn as well as on the web. If there's any connection we can help you make with anyone who's listening who wants to connect with Jeff, we're happy to help facilitate that. But Jeff, it's just absolutely a pleasure to have you here. And I'm selfishly quite hopeful that we'll have you back again sometime in the relatively near future. So thanks again for being here. True joy to have you here.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And having known you gentlemen now for over a couple of years, it's a real pleasure to be able to sit and have these conversations. So thank you. It's really just fun to talk.
Thanks
Thanks
again. We'll do one of these in person as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll book my flight. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Right. Thanks.
Have a
guys.
great Jeff.
Okay. Bye now.
Thanks for joining Joel and Mike for another episode of Travel Around the Block. If you have any questions or topics you would like to see discussed on the show, or if you'd like to be considered as a potential guest or sponsor, please reach out to us at hello@travelaroundtheblock.com. And of course, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Wishing you a wonderful day wherever you are around the block.